I'm so sorry about what happened. Eh, Hi, welcome back. I just not. Uh, I think my PC just overload. I don't know what happens. Sometimes Restream just froze and disconnects randomly. Random disconnects. All right. What do I have here? Um, what I'm going to put here is where's YouTube? YouTube. Oh, Chairman Powell press conference will come 2:30. I apologize. Never mind about this now. I will. Oh, here I have a link here, but I don't want to click into that link yet. Okay, I don't want to use the resources here. Okay. Again, sorry about what happened. The Restream just random disconnect me. Okay. Notice. Okay. What? Oh, this is too big now. It's too big. This is what I am more interested in this chart. Oh, by the way, I don't even talk about Nasdaq, man. What's happening in Nasdaq? What's happening in Nasdaq? It's really high, making all-time highs. What about the Dow? The Dow is very weak. Closer. Oh, so really weak. Okay, so basically Nasdaq is what is holding this market, huh? That is something interesting here. Again, so sorry about what happened. Sometimes it's. What? Oh, look at this. Oh no, this is Russell. I said this trending higher. This it has higher volume. It's having acceptance up here. Huh. Nasdaq. Oh, Nasdaq is the volume is decreasing here. As the market starts to reach the upper side range, volume starts to decrease. This is interesting here. Yes. Now, this is the adjusted. Okay, I'm going to change this one, so it's now going to be C25. Okay. Wait a minute. No. Not yet. Still not yet. It is U. Okay. No, why I say not yet? Because there's tremendous amount of inventory here. Right? Tremendous amount of inventory here. Just notice what may happen here. And this is the adjusted. This is this is the yes. This is the adjusted, and this is the current contract. What is the difference, right? The main difference between these ones are this one has a gap here. When you do the adjustment, there's no gap actually. Huh. Look at this. Duplicate the. What time is it? We still have 7 more minutes. This high here. Anything. If there is something to the downside here, the field support is this, but I believe the main one is this one here. Can be because this is what the range actually is. All of this movement that we are seeing to the upside, questionable movement, same, actually comes after the market takes this high out. You know, it tested a couple times. There is no acceptance below, which actually targets the opposite side, which in this case now is this. I still will consider this, right? Coming from this breakout here, tested here, testing here. This is the range. Let's put it at same distance. This one. Should I do this? Should I do this? No, let's do it from here. Let's use this low here, which is the 50. Or we have the 95, 6600. What do we have? 6600. Yeah. Actually, it's not this anymore. This is interesting. This is it. I think this is more relevant here. 60. No. I keep this one here, and I brought this one lower. To the 6600 here. Very questionable, by the way. Very questionable, huh? There's a breakout here, and then everything that comes after that comes exactly from 6600, which is not a good thing. But who cares about that? We have a distribution on the upper side, a distribution on the lower side, and this huge range here, which is basically this range up here. You know, market's trending higher, and there is some rebalancing that's going on in the upper side. But what I question here is the time, right? We have the rollover, we have FOMC. Do we have anything else? Maybe tomorrow, jobless, nothing else. I think this is it. What do we have for next week? Let's check next week. Next week. Next week. Let me check. Next week we have GDP. Core PCE. Friday. PCE and GDP. GDP on Thursday, and PCE, which is really important. That can be really important for those are the main things for next week. After the rollover period concludes, there's always, this time that happens between the rollover ends and the earnings start to come again, which is going to be in how much time? Like maybe 6-8 weeks from the rollover period ends. There's sometimes if nothing comes out of this, it's not that very consistent with convincing directional move that comes after this. Usually there is some back and forth that goes during those periods. Otherwise, if there is something really convincing, if the directional moves happen here and happens with conviction, what the earnings can do is actually establish some sort of resistance or support to that movement, right? Or helps to with the accelerator, with the confirmation of the movement. All right. 2 minutes to FOMC. Now, what I am very, very interested, what I watch here is this, okay? I want to see what happens here. Let me, because I see potential, for example, this wild swings that can be aimed to take these highs, these stops that are here, or these stops that are down here. Can be in any direction, man. It really can be in any direction here. I want to see that happens, or if there is something really slow, right? And the most important thing, the trade for me, if there is anything, will be after Chairman Powell speech. Which starts 2:30 p.m. Eastern time in the US. Okay, let's see. Let's just keep watching this. 667, 67, 69. Last is 69.75. 69 last is up here. Okay, look at that. Look at those movements. There is somebody here trying to push this market lower, which most of the time is the trick, right? Many people, many traders fall for that. Oh, this market is going lower. Damn it, relax, man. Just relax here. Enjoy your job. Enjoy the markets. I'm going to extend this one as well. I don't care about the lower one now. So I want to see what I want to see. This what I want to do is I want to see this. I won't be able to see these references. Now this one has been corrected. Remember we talked about this. Now here it comes. Look at that. This is a movement to the upside here. We have something to the upside here. We have volume coming here. Okay, this is probably an area that the market is going to hold. And I want to see what happens after that. What? There was nothing. Yeah, oh no, there was a 25 drops there on rates. Alright, so that is half the body wanted. Oh, notice where this volume is. Around this area here, big blocks that we have from this day. Okay, these stops have been taken out. This area has been taken out. It didn't reach this, or it reached, or it has reached actually that. Now I'm going to. I'm interested in keeping that. You know, the fact that the market does this actually, for me, this shows acceptance, shows something is maybe coming to the upside here. But let's see. All right, these stops have been taken now. Let's see what the market does relative to this one here. Relative to this one here. There's tremendous give back here. Most of the spike has been retaken here now. That says something about the movement now. Actually, it's not as strong then. It has retraced all of that. Look at that. All of this doesn't mean retraced. So what can you do here? That's the question, right? What can you do here? You're trying to do something here. It's very risky, man. All right. So this area of support now, this area of support has dropped to 0, which is a kind of like a question. Notice where it came down to, right? It comes down to 0. It was bought from 0. Okay. So now I'm going to close this. And see if the market, there's a significant amount of stops, which I believe are here, and this high also made during the overnight is okay. Governors are stating that they wanted to cut to 25 points more. All right. Notice where the most important thing for me is where it came down to. It came down to 7, okay? Now, let's see, there is some upside acceleration from here. No? Now, these ones are being taken. There's a really narrow, there's tremendous amount of short inventory here, okay? Remember, during this day, there was 1.7 millions, and there were 2 millions that I'm just lost here. Seven, right? This buying, the pullback was bought from 7. That gives me an idea here. Okay, forget about this overnight, it doesn't count anymore. This saddle here, what the heck? What is this? Oh, this is from this day. No, let me remove this. It's kind of like a misleading here. This is what matters. When the odds, the probabilities of the moving retracing after the original spike increases when we have something like this, for example, right? Something really skinny, completely wide, extending higher and higher and higher, and not in the way how it was originally. If you remember here, the first reaction was just boom, right? So the big spike, pretty much to where it is now, kind of, I guess, to this area, but there had some accumulation. There was some reds and purples around, I don't remember. Let's see this area, for example, and then it extended a little bit more. Oh, I was here, right? I was here, right? Extended a little bit more and then retraced it all the way down almost to this area here. Right? When I see that kind of, just like this one, for example, it's going higher, it's starting to accumulate here, right? If the first reaction is like that, okay, there can be something in the direction that moved. Now, from here, that was 5 minutes ago, right? From here, to hold the movement, this needs some upside here, some upside continuation. Probably taking this all-time high, previous day high, followed by the overnight high out. Right? If there is back and forth, and it starts to struggle here, okay, that may signal something there that may need something else, to push this higher. I want to bring to my attention, or to your attention now, volume, okay? It's here. Okay, here. Okay, let's see if there's any change here. This should be here. Okay, if this is down here, it means nothing has changed, man. Nothing has changed. So basically the market is ignoring. Oh boy, what happened? Did I close? Oh, I don't even open. Uh-oh. Open chart book. No, I didn't open September. Okay, this is September. Let's open it here. All right. This is September, and all of these longs here, they can pretty much feel safe as of 2:08 p.m. You know, but remember, the most important thing here is Chairman Powell speech. What happened during his speech, and the trade may come just after that. I can see some accumulation here on the upper side. I see a spike to the upside, and I'm seeing accumulation in the upper side of the spike. This area here is okay. Now it's becoming, and this is why I say this. I want to observe first, right? I have no idea what was going to happen here when these blocks came, right? But notice after 1-2 days, okay, there is something here, right? This area here is, is being used as a support. This one here. This is not relevant anymore. The shorts are still here, man. The shorts are still here. I believe a good amount of short inventory is still here. They are not going to get out unless they are squeezed out here. If they are squeezed out, what can happen after that is the market just can keep going higher, or who knows, it might collapse after that. Nobody knows, man. All right. Now, if I see the histogram on the right, what does it resemble? Look at Nasdaq, man. Nasdaq is completely different. Oh my God. Look at that. Nasdaq spike didn't even take the high. Oh. Okay, it's building value below this 2 days range. Gosh, this is no good, man. This is not good. These longs are the opposite. There's a dissonance here. Okay, I can see here. And while the ES is potentially building something to the upside, the Nasdaq is not, man. Nasdaq is quite the opposite, building something. There could be some significant break here in Nasdaq. Look at this low here, right? A value area at this 2 day range value area low. What the heck? Right. Kind of like around center, half back here. Very questionable high here. Gap has been closed. The spike is being rejected. These are two different markets here. Okay, I wonder if things are setting here for this low for the market to take this low here, these lows here. Okay. Now remember when we talk about what happened, what we expect or what is expected doesn't happen. The expectation, what was expected, has happened or is happening here. Now go ahead and do something here. Now this is the second time this market is coming to sell. This is the second look at that. Did you see where this stopped? Right, the sell. Okay, this is the second time it's coming. As a rally feels, the first reaction, they come back, was bought from sell. Now it's coming back again. Everything is starting from sell, right? The spike started from sell. The first vibe, the first retracement was bought from sell again, and now this is the third time it's happening. This is not a good sign. Look at that. Now let's see if selling now comes from sell. this questionable low is not a reference anymore. Let's remove this here. This low here also is not a reference. More important, is this one. Notice where it's being bought. This is not good. Okay, now this high has been corrected. Okay. Now there's tremendous pressure here, right? If these longs here don't take, what happened to the shorts here may happen to the longs now. How far this market can drop, long enough to take this. Remember, there's a tremendous amount of supply down here as it was up here. This is not that much actually. Let's remove this. I don't want to mislead anybody here. Okay, so it's very hard here. It's very hard, to get, for example, short here. What happened, man? This market is going higher. It was going higher. What do I do? The market will come back. Right? Let me hold my long here. It has a good high. It has excess. This high has excess. All right. Now, I think this area can be something here. Taking. I remember markets aim, but don't end. Now, look at this. This is just a load of whites here. Loads of white here. Somebody's just extending here. Somebody's game is crazy. Oh boy, man. Oh boy. How far can it go? I guess getting close to this area is a good area for profits here. Okay. This is a push here. This is a push here. Okay, right there. Right there. All right. Yeah. This low is even more questionable now. This is not good. Let me remove this saddle. I don't want to mislead here. Okay. This is having weakness. This area here is even more weak now. Okay. There's even more stops here. More stops in this area. Wow, look at that. Look at that retracement. Remember the first time when the market went up here, when the market took this one high, the retracement was just huge, man. The whole spike was retraced. It was just too much. And notice on the whites here. Tremendous white. It is when the volume comes is when the volume retraces. The movement is to the downside, and as the market retraces higher, that's when volume starts to come, which is different, right? Which is different when the movement happens, and volume comes, and the market keeps going lower. Volume comes, and market keeps going lower, which is a different dynamics. That's a different. This is just trading here going on. And this can be so. The thing here is, this can be so. How can I say this? What is the word I'm looking for, or the expression I'm looking for? This can use such amount of mental capital, man, that when something comes out of this, after Chairman Powell speech, we could have been whipsawed by the market, so bad, right, that we may see something going on, but now we have the doubt. See the doubt planted in our brains. We are not that confident anymore, right? You don't have that confidence to go or to stick to the plan, right? This happens, I do this, right? This is tremendous swings that this market is having. The downside, I still don't think the downside has been completed, really. You know, this low is very questionable. All right, I'm going to put it here because I wanted to copy this. A couple days ago, this low was questionable, and now this low is also. Oh, come on, man. Copy and move drawing. Modify text. Very questionable. Okay? Very questionable. Night, in this case, it's not night 12, it's night 17 now. And it's not 8 white low. It is very questionable. 8 white. It is going to be 9 white, not low now. 9 white low. Come on, there's a lot of stops below that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close this because I know there's a white low here, this one and this one, and this one adds one more to this. All right, I'm going to close this one too. The market never came down to this area, right? You know, this and there's actually, but as a matter of fact, this is, for short-term traders just imagine this. Who is going to buy here? Who is going to buy the market down here to this low? To a tick. One tick before getting that. All right? So that's what Jim calls anchor trade. So one tick from that, and if this low is taking, and you put your stop only one tick below this, for example, right? No more. You don't wait the market to come down here. That's a completely different kind of mindset that you have down there. And traders fall for that, right? We might think that we are able to do all the trades that are available. We need to know what kind of trades are out there, but we will naturally have some strengths and some weakness, and it is up to us to discover those ones. Okay, this high is not good. The low is really bad. I don't like this low. Really, I don't. There is value building down here, but notice how this is the dynamics. This is the dynamic that's happening here. Let's move the whole thing here. Oh, what happened to sell? Did I erase it? Yeah, I erased it. What happened? What the heck is 67.50? What? Not bad. 67. Kind of look around here, right? Oh, like that. Sell. This is sell. Check this movement, okay? Check this movement. And this is home markets. This is the dynamics of the markets here. Who is here doing what, right? As we speak, notice what's happening here. And notice where saddle is. sellers down here. Okay. The market opened, this current period opened kind of like around here, right? And then shoot is very high. There was something like this that formed in my bad, it wasn't like that, it was kind of like this. But something like this formed, and they keep going higher. But as soon as that happened, the next thing the market does is comes down here. This was the first observation that we did here, right? It was, man, this is, the whole spike has been retraced. That was the first observation that I had here, that we had here. Right? The next thing, market buys from this area. It happens to be saddle, right? The low of the period was saddle basically, and then market comes back up here, and trades back and forth in this area. Start building value in this one. Not just that, it moves this higher. The next observation was, okay, just check it out. What's happening here? We were having something like this in the upper side, right? And the observation was, the mental note that we had here was, if when I see this thing happening, if these guys don't have an upside here and start building value up here, these guys can be very nervous, right? This can be a risk here that something may happen to them. And the next thing we know, the market comes back to sell, right? Comes back this time exactly to sell and goes higher. I don't know how far. No, I didn't notice how far, but I noticed it was bought 2 times, right? And the 3rd time it happens. Now after the 3rd time, we have this downside here. Now the next thing, right? Let's got to be able. Notice where the market is selling from now. Sell again. Right? The same thing that happened to the upside now is happening to the downside. Okay. Comes down here, right? And there was absolutely white here. Absolutely white here. There was no purple, no red, none of those white. The rally is what builds this. Comes down, not push. The rally builds this. Comes back again. Another push. I start to build the value here. No? This push into the downside, got nothing, and now the same thing, wash and repeat. What's happening now? This is the first time now the market is coming back to sell. Let's see how much these guys have from this movement that's coming from sell. Right? The upside has significant movement, about 20 points higher. Let's see how much this guy have. 70, 20 points will be 50, something like, right here, right what this area is. Right? That's 50, you see? Yeah, that's 50. 20 points up here, 20 points down here. Just let's keep checking. This is really interesting, really nice when you have the pressure here. I mean, you may have having a reading of the market also it means nothing, man. You got to be able to do something to get something out of that. It's really easy to talk when you don't have any skin on the game. Now this is not a good area to buy. I mean to sell. Now, Chairman Powell is coming. Now I may actually pay attention to value. I disregarded value. Remember, at least I didn't care about value before FOMC, before the release of the news. Now I check into value. Okay. Now I will check value here. I'm gonna see what happens here with this. This is, we have excess on the upper side, we have excess on the lower side. What happens from here on? What the heck is this? I don't know about that. And check it out, right? How many times this market retraced to this area and sold, right? Sold for here. Now they're not selling from this area; they are selling from sale now. The shows have been forced out here. Huh? But oh boy, man, so wild, man. So if we don't have an appreciation of what is going on behind price, we can be easily whipsawed by this market, by this kind of movements. Do you understand? One thing that we stated here. Okay, this is, the potential area here. The market can target this moment, and this can be an area, right, to take profits here. The market may come down, keep going all the way down to here, but this is an area. This is an important area, right? This is an important area to take profits or hedge or whatever. Of course, it's easy after the fact, right? You can check. You can go back and you can go back in the stream and review this part, right? As the movement was happening, how to deal with the movement. Oh, if you have something, if I have something, I don't have anything here, and that was the plan. What I'm seeing here, my goal is to see what happens up until Chairman Powell. The press conference. My bad. I'm missing that. What is this? My bad. Come on, man. What? I miss it. Oh boy. Silly me. Come on. Chairman Powell today. Fed. Okay. Hasn't started yet, has it? Okay, right here. What the market does relative to what he has said.
I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. While the unemployment rate remains low, it has edged up. Job gains have slowed, and downside risks to employment have risen. At the same time, inflation has risen recently and remains somewhat elevated. In support of our goals, and in light of the shift in the balance of risks, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by GDP rose at a pace of around 1.5% in the first half of the year, down from 2.5% last year. The moderation in growth largely reflects a slowdown in consumer spending. In contrast, business investment in equipment and intangibles has picked up from last year's pace. Activity in the housing sector remains weak. In our summary of economic projections, the median participant projects GDP to rise 1.6% this year and 1.8% next year, a touch stronger than projected in June. In the labor market, the unemployment rate edged up to 4.3% in August, but remains little changed over the past year at a relatively low level. Payroll job gains have slowed significantly.
Check this out. Check where this is coming from. This is a level that traders don't have. And they see the 75. This is becoming really important now.
Due to lower immigration and lower labor force participation. Even so, labor demand has softened, and the recent pace of job creation appears to be running below the break-even rate needed to hold the unemployment rate constant. In addition, wage growth has continued to moderate while still outpacing inflation. Overall, the marked slowing in both the supply of and demand for workers is unusual. In this less dynamic and somewhat softer labor market, the downside risks to employment appear to have risen. In our SEP, the median projection for the unemployment rate is 4.5% at the end of this year and edges down thereafter. Inflation has eased significantly from its highs in mid-2022, but remains somewhat elevated relative to our 2% longer-run goal. Estimates based on the Consumer Price Index and other data indicate that total PCE prices rose 2.7% over the 12 months ending in August, and that, excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.9%. These readings are higher than earlier in the year as inflation for goods has picked up. In contrast, disinflation appears to be continuing for services. Near-term measures of inflation expectations have moved up, on balance, over the course of this year on news about tariffs, as reflected in both market and survey-based measures. Beyond the next year or so, however, most measures of longer-term expectations remain consistent with our 2% inflation goal. The median projection in the SEP for total PCE inflation is 3.0% this year and falls to 2.6% in 2026 and to 2.1% in 2027. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. At today's meeting, the committee decided to lower the target range for the federal funds rate by a quarter percentage point to 4 to 4.25%, and to continue reducing the size of our balance sheet. Changes to government policies continue to evolve, and their effects on the economy remain uncertain. Higher tariffs have begun to push up prices in some categories of goods, but their overall effects on economic activity and inflation remain to be seen. A reasonable base case is that the effects on inflation will be relatively short-lived, a one-time shift in the price level. But it is also possible that the inflationary effects could instead be more persistent, and that is a risk to be assessed and managed. Our obligation is to ensure that a one-time increase in the price level does not become an ongoing inflation problem. In the near term, risks to inflation are tilted to the upside and risks to employment to the downside, a challenging situation. When our goals are in tension like this, our framework calls for us to balance both sides of our dual mandate. With downside risks to employment having increased, the balance of risks has shifted. Accordingly, we judged it appropriate at this meeting to take another step toward a more neutral policy stance. With today's decision, we remain well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments. We will continue to determine the appropriate stance of monetary policy based on the incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. In our SEP, FOMC participants wrote down their individual assessments of an appropriate path for the federal funds rate, based on what each participant judges to be the most likely scenario for the economy. The median participant projects that the appropriate level of the federal funds rate will be 3.6% at the end of this year, 3.4% at the end of 2026, and 3.1% at the end of 2027. This path is 1/4 percentage point lower than projected in June. As is always the case, these individual forecasts are subject to uncertainty, and they're not a committee plan or decision. Policy is not on a preset course. The Fed has been assigned two goals for monetary policy: maximum employment and stable prices. We remain committed to supporting maximum employment, bringing inflation sustainably to our 2% goal, and keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our success in delivering on these goals matters to all Americans. We understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission, and we at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to our discussion.
Great. Thank you. Chris Rugaber at Associated Press. As you know, Fed Governor Stephen Miron has continued kept his position at the White House, even as he's joined the Fed board. This is the first time, I believe, the Fed's board has had someone with executive branch ties in decades. Does this compromise the Fed's independence from?
Very thin market really here. Man, this is a really low volume. I think here 2000, 2000, 2000. Really not that good here. Let's check. I was maybe trying to see something in this market as well. No, this not that much really. Let's just keep listening to
Although perhaps.
how Chairman Powell navigates this round of questions. Having seen, look at this. No, really no big blocks here. Really nothing. Very empty. Okay, very empty. Something is forming here. Something is forming. This the most important thing is this area here. You know, this area holding, but it's holding to the downside now. Right? It's being used to launch the attacks to the downside here. This is super. There can be some significant spike here that can take the market to the downside, maybe all the way down to this single point area here. Okay. But I'm not saying that's going to happen still.
And for workers has also come down quite sharply, and to the point where we see what I've called a curious balance. It's, you know, typically when we say things are in balance, that sounds good, but in this case, the balance is because both supply and demand have.
10 white low is damn so bad, man. This is so bad.
Nick Timmeros of the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, do economic conditions and the balance of risks no longer warrant a restrictive policy setting?
So I don't think we can say that. What we can say is this, that over the course of this year, we've kept our policy at a restrictive level, and people have different views, but a clearly restrictive level, I would say. So, and we were able to do that over the course of this year because the labor market was in very solid condition with strong job creation and all those things. I think if you go back to April and now look at the revised job creation numbers for May, June, July, and August, you can I can no longer say that. So what that means is that the risks were clearly tilted toward inflation. I would say
This is really interesting here. In the same way how these highs were taken, the same way as these ones taken. There's no really serious upside continuation that came. There's no squeeze. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. These shorts were not squeezed, and these loans are not being squeezed. That's the thing. Yeah.
there wasn't widespread support at all for a 50 basis point cut today. You know, I think we've done very large rate hikes and very large rate cuts in the last 5 years, and you tend to do those at a time when you feel that policy is out of place and needs to move quickly to a new place. That's not at all what I feel certainly now. I feel like our policy has been doing the right thing so far this year. I think we were right to wait and see how tariffs and inflation and the labor market evolved.
Chairman Powell is standing his ground here. He's not going to pretty much telling to the president to go to see if there's raining in the backyard.
Colby Smith with the New York Times. Should we be viewing today's cut as the committee taking out some insurance?
He's not going to bend to the president.
Of a downturn are already in place. I guess I'm just, trying to square the shift in the rate forecast in the SEP towards more cuts than just 3 months ago, with the fact that the forecast for unemployment didn't change.
Yeah, I think you could think of this in a way as a risk management cut, because
this is a risk management. Whatever happened here, the upside here was not taking this low here, right? Actually, it didn't. The trade that I thought that we talked about earlier actually didn't come here, but here, right? And that's the thing about markets. Markets don't know what I am planning, what we are planning, right? Market just do it. I have to be flexible to adapt to whatever is happening, right? I'm just trying to implement. Look at what's happening to value. Value is actually is moving a little bit higher here, right? This one was, if there was something here, still, I think that could have happened out of here. I don't trust here now the upside here, but it can be very tight to.
So I guess I'm just wondering how
what
you
Chairman Powell
characterize
has
the
to
risk to
say.
price pressures of kicking off a series of cuts at this point.
Yes,
The main thing is he's not bending to the president.
understand and appreciate that we need to remain fully committed to restoring 2% inflation on a sustained basis, and we will do that. At the same time, we've got to weigh the risks to the two goals. And I would say since April, to me, the risks of higher and more persistent inflation have probably become a little less. And that's partly because the labor market has softened, GDP growth has slowed. So I would just say that the risks there have been less.
This low here, this is kind of like a similar trade to what happened down here, this one here. You know, they are trying to do the same. The circumstances are different now.
Michael McKee.
Now, the traders that were trading here are being crushed here because now, you know, understanding that the players here now are completely different. There are more players and different mindsets here. You know, there are players that were waiting for what Chairman Powell has to say, and they are trading now based on what or reacting to every answer that is having to. Yes, I wonder if Steve Lisman.
That what's happening in the labor market has more to do with immigration than it has to do with tariffs. That was the question I was answering. So I wouldn't say that all of what's happening in the labor market is due to tariffs. I mean, you clearly have a slowing in it due to immigration. You clearly have a slowing in demand, which is now perhaps more than that in supply, and we know that because the unemployment rate has ticked up. So, that's what I meant by that.
If I could follow up, every year since 2015, the SEP has forecast that you would hit your target 2 years later. And this year, this SEP says you're going to hit your target 2 years later. 2% does not seem to be in sight. Does that suggest that the 2% target is not really achievable? And does this present any credibility problems for you in telling people that that's what you're going to do if you can never reach it?
Well, I mean, you're right. It does say we're going to get to 2% inflation in 2028, at the end of 28. But that's,
This can be
that's literally how you put
This
the
one
projections
from,
together. You're
from
writing down a
September
rate
3rd.
path, which
It
is
seems like
designed
that
to
is a
create, over the course of the
It's a
SEP,
collection of, September
time
3rd.
frame, 2% inflation and maximum employment too. So that's all that is. No one really knows where the economy will be in 3 years, but the nature of the exercise is to write down policy that you believe would return to the 2% goal over at least by the end of the exercise.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth Schulze with ABC News.
Not how I change.
The latest inflation report shows that prices are still going up across key categories for many households, including groceries. What will the Fed do if prices pick up more?
So our expectation, and you can see this consistently through the year, has been that inflation will move up this year, but that the base.
Notice now how this volume came, right? It can be seen here better. Notice how this volume came, right? The dynamic of this volume, building here, down here. This volume was building as the market is going lower. Nothing. There's nothing that's coming out of there. Just the dynamic is different here now.
Right now, the situation we're in is that we see inflation. We continue to expect it to move up, maybe not as high as we would have expected it to move up a few months ago. The pass-through of the tariffs into inflation has been slower and smaller. The labor market has softened. So the case for there being a persistent inflation outbreak is less. And so that's why we think it's time for us really to acknowledge that the risks to the other mandate have grown and that we should move in the direction of neutral. So what will we do? We'll do what we need to do, but we have two mandates and we try to balance them. For a long time, our framework says that when our two goals are in tension, this is quite an unusual situation, how do we decide?
Yeah, the Fed is in a tight spot now, man.
What we do is we ask which is farther from, how far is each from the goal and how long is it expected to get to the goal? So, and then we think about those things and we see, as I mentioned, our policy had been really skewed toward inflation for a long time, really. Now we see that there's downside risk clearly in the labor market, and so we're moving in the direction of more neutral policy.
How concerned are you about the slowdown in the jobs market for households at home, especially younger Americans struggling to land a job?
So it's an interesting labor market, and obviously we think it's appropriate that we reduce our rates so that we become more neutral, which presumably will be better for the labor market. You see people who are sort of more at the margins, so kids coming out of college and younger people, minorities are having a hard time finding jobs. The overall job finding rate is very, very low. However, the layoff rate is also very low. So you've got a low firing, low hiring environment, and the concern is that if you start to see layoffs, the people who are laid off there won't be a lot of hiring going on. So that could very quickly flow into higher unemployment. In a healthier economy, healthier labor market, there would be jobs for those people. But now the hiring rate is very, very low. So that's been a growing concern over the last few months. And it's one of the reasons why we think it's appropriate that we begin to shift our policy focus toward a more balanced one.
Steve Leisman, CNBC. Mr. Chair, in the past, during rate cuts, you used the word recalibration. And I wonder if you pointedly did not use it this time. And in fact, when you said policy is not on a preset course, did you mean that as sort of the opposite of recalibration? Are we meeting to meeting, data point by data point? Are we in the process here of getting back to neutral? Thank you.
So I think we're in a meeting by meeting situation. We're going to be looking at the data. The SEP really here. So we often point this out. What the SEP is, it's an accumulation, accumulation of the individual projections of 19 people, showing what they believe at a particular moment in time to be the most likely path for the economy and thus the appropriate path for monetary policy as well. And as you know, we don't debate or try to agree on what that is. We just write them down and accumulate them. We do sometimes discuss them. And so we always say we're not on a preset path, and we really mean that. The actual decisions we make are going to be based on the incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks at the time the decisions are actually made. So you will have seen that we have 10 participants out of 19 who wrote down 2 or more cuts for the remainder of the year, and 9 who wrote down fewer than, in fact, in a good number of cases, no more cuts. So rather than looking at this as certainty, I would encourage people, as always, to look at the SEP
point of view.
through the lens of
Remember we talk about potential loans coming to this. Coming from this area, I am, based on what I'm seeing here, that's not that convincing. What favors that trade is the value moving higher, even though it's moving low. But I think that's the only thing, and the all-time high made during the overnight session, because the market has quickly trade through below the stops or the lows that should have not been taken out. It really easy went through this distribution, this one as well. And now I want to see if this holds, this single prints, the significant excess we have here holds, right? Because down below here, this is very questionable, man. This is very questionable here. This is very questionable down here as well, and all the way down to here. But not in December, but September. Right? It's a lot of inventory here. That's just playing here now. Remember the trade that that
So,
I say comes
but,
may
you know,
come
we
from
get together, we discuss,
selling
we have a
options,
great discussion,
naked options,
and then we
right?
decide what to do,
And
and we act.
having
But, you're
also
right, that
having
it's a
having
wide
the
dispersion of
subtle,
views, and I
right?
think that's
Starting, which
understandable and
started
natural in this
Monday
situation.
and was very evident on Tuesday. The subtle selling that was going on,
Victoria
right?
Vida with
The market
Bloomberg.
was moving higher, but
You've
the
talked a lot
selling,
about Fed
selling was
independence
going on
and
under the
importance
surface.
over the years.
That
But
selling now,
as
yeah,
markets
that
have
selling
questions about
is the other
what
side
exactly
of the
Fed
trade.
income's intentions are with the
Who
Fed,
was
what
buying?
would you point
Who
to
was buying
as
at the time?
things they should be watching
That was the main
to
thing. Who was
determine
buying?
that the Fed is still making
Retail was
decisions
buying,
based on,
or not retail. If I want
the economic
name it
outlook rather
or
than
label,
forward-looking
put a label on top of that retail, but
it's
short-term
deeply in our
traders,
culture to
weak
do-
traders,
to do our
laggard
work based on
traders.
the
Right?
incoming data
The other
and-
side,
and never
who
consider
was in the
else.
other
That's just-
side of the trade
everybody who's at the Fed
were
really
stronger
feels strongly
hands,
about that way. So,
stronger
you know,
participants.
You'll know
Right?
it by the way we
And
talk
those
about what we're
ones
doing,
may
by
be
the
the
speeches
ones
that people
now,
give, by the
that
decisions
the
that we
ones who
make,
are
you'll know that
moving,
we're just
yeah,
still
the
gonna do
ones
that.
who
That's
have
all we do. And we don't
staying
frame these
power
questions
or
at all
more
or see them
power or
in
can
terms
hold,
of
or that the
political
ones that can
outcomes. I think
hold
when you get to
these
another part of
virulent
Washington, everything
swings
is seen
that
through the
we
lens of, does it
have
help or hurt
seen today, right?
this
How do you
political
go
party,
short
this
here, for example, right?
politician, you know, that's the
Right?
frame.
After
People
this
find it hard to
movement
believe,
that
but that's just-
you have
that is
seen,
not at
we
all
have
the way
seen
we think
here.
about things.
What is
The Fed,
behind
taking a
that?
longer perspective,
Inventories.
we're trying to
Is there any
serve the
inventory to the
market
upside?
as we can.
That was
So
removed.
I think
That
you'll-
was
you'll
removed.
be able
What
to
lays
tell.
here,
I don't believe
what
we'll
is
ever get to
still
that
there
place.
is this one.
You know, I would say
Selling at
we're
one
doing
moment in
our
time
work
we have
exactly as
talked
we
about
always have now.
during last week.
People are making
This
their
market cannot come down
arguments
here.
and
It's
we're having
impossible.
really a great
Cannot come down
discussion
here.
around these
Not even.
banking issues.
I am going to sell options, naked options,
the court
naked
case
puts
around
way
this
down
book
here, right?
as
Market's
being
not going to
related
come
to
here.
questions
Come on, man. The market is super high
No,
now.
I see
It's
that
going
as a
higher.
court case
Now,
that it would be
those
inappropriate
options
for me
now,
to
they're becoming very nervous. They might be underwater now, and the market still has a lot to do. Has potential to do a lot of damage here. It really has the potential.
The revisions for June
Right?
were the
And
first negative
these things
revision we've seen since
can be
December 2020.
really,
How can the Fed
really,
makes important decisions on rate, and what
career-changing
with the interest
events.
rates on data that seems to be
And we have
part of
seen, just check the past
So on QCEW,
the past streams, right? What can happen
revision
when,
that we saw
even
is
though
almost exactly
this
what
kind of participant just need to close, for example, needs the market to close above
reason for that
the
is
50 moving average
the
on
last
Friday, for
bunch of
example, right?
quarters,
But the fact that they
there's
get
been
closer,
almost a predictable
it is
overcount.
just tremendous. It can
And I think
inflict
the-
tremendous
you know,
amount of
the-
damage because
your
there can be
latest
margin
really
calls.
doesn't
You
understand
just
this and
need
they're
to
working hard
meet,
to fix it. It's
right?
got to
And
do-
who plays
of
those
course, it has something to
those
do
kind
with
of
the
trades are
response rates, but it's
usually
also got to do with
traders
what's
that
going on
are
with the debt
aiming
model.
just a
Because a
short
good rate of job
gains, right?
creation happens
But the
around
amount,
new
the amount
companies and how many
of
go out of business,
contracts
how many are founded.
that
And it's just
have
really
to
hard.
be
You can't survey it. You've
sold
gotta have a model that predicts that.
or this
It's quite difficult to do, especially when the economy is under
naked
big changes.
puts or
And
calls, in
they've
this
been
case
working
puts,
on
right,
that
that can
and
be
making
sold.
progress on it, but
To
what
get
the data we
anything
get
out of that
is still
has to be really significant
well good
amounts,
enough for
10,
us to do
20,
our
30
work.
contracts.
To
Right?
the
To
extent
make
we have
what?
issues around data
To
right
make
now,
10
it's
points,
about
to
low
make
response rates.
20 points.
That's happened
But the damage
all
that those
over.
ones can inflict,
All over, really. Response rates
if I
are
was
just
aiming to make 40 points, right now I can be 400
It's no great
points
secret.
underwater.
You know, we
Of
want high
course,
response
I
rates.
still
We
have
need
2
those
more
to
days
have,
to go,
less volatile data.
right? But my account is
The way
not
to
going
get
to
that is
help.
to make sure that
My
the
broker
agencies that
sees
collect the
that.
data have sufficient
The broker is going to
resources
ask,
drive
the most
higher
broker is going to
response
ask,
rates. It's not a
mate,
complicated
you have to
problem, but
meet,
that's what it takes.
you
It's
have to
not a
meet the
mystery.
potential
That's what it takes. The other thing I'll say is
result
in
of
the
this
case of the
trade.
job
You're
creation,
well underwater
the
now.
first
If you don't do
response
this
rate is
now,
quite low for the
your
first
account's going
month
to
or
be
lower for the
liquidated.
first
Doesn't
month.
matter
By the
what.
time you get to the second or third month,
The market can
you're still
come up, can
collecting
come back here,
responses for that last
right?
month, for that
As it's
prior
doing
month.
here.
And you get
But
to the place
you
where
don't have the
data
power
is
to
much
stay
more
that.
reliable by the second and certainly
That's
the
what I'm
third
trying to
month.
say.
So it's
You
not
know?
that we don't get the data, it's just that.
And that can happen really fast, man.
For the
Brokers
benchmark
are not
that
going to,
focused
are not
jobs,
going to risk
that we
anything.
thought were there weren't really there. Shows a weaker job market coming into into this year. If you had had that information, would it have changed your mind related to where
Now,
the
who is in the
interest
short
rates should
side
be?
here?
Should there have been a cut earlier?
Now,
You know,
this,
we have to live life looking through the windshield.
where is-
rather than
okay.
rearview mirror, as you know. And,
we have
all I
this,
can tell you
we
is
have this
we
question
see
about
where
the
we are
thing.
now, and
No,
we
what
took
it is?
appropriate action. We took that appropriate action today.
What it is? 10 white low, right? What it is?
Thanks. Howard Schneider with Reuters. So, as you mentioned a minute ago, some margins of the job market would suggest that the slide's already happening.
Oh, okay.
A black unemployment rate in
Alright,
August was
this
close to
one
2%,
has been
declining
checked out.
work
This is
week, difficulty
not
among
a reference
college
anymore.
graduates finding work.
This one is not,
rising
no
youth
trade came
unemployment.
out of this.
Why do you think a quarter percentage point now is going to arrest that?
Well, I hadn't say that I thought a
There
quarter
was,
point would make a huge
and
difference.
this is
in economy, but
imagination
you gotta look at the whole path of
at
rates.
play, right?
Right?
Nothing come
And,
out of this.
Market's has already been baking in expectations. I mean, our market works through expectations, right? So I think our policy path really does matter. And I think it's
This is
important that we
closer
use our
here.
tools to support the labor market when we do see signs like that. I did mention that, you know, you
All
see,
of this all of this short
minorities,
short
unemployment
covering
going
there.
up, you see younger people,
You know,
people who are more
yeah,
vulnerable
this is, I
economically,
think this
more
can be
susceptible to
it
economic
here.
cycles. That's one of the reasons, in addition to just overall.
And these are
lower,
the movements,
payroll
right?
job
That we
creation
have
rates
to
that
be able
shows you
to
that at the
cash
margin,
in.
the labor market is weakening. I would also point to labor force participation.
I say I didn't do
Some part of the
anything here. I'm
significant
just
decline in
upset
labor
with
force
this.
Participation over the last year has probably been cyclical in nature rather than just the usual aging process.
Look at this,
So we
huh?
put all those together.
Look at this.
and we
As
see
the
that-
market, and
that
this is
the labor market
very
softening, and we don't need
counterintuitive.
to
Right?
soften anymore, don't
This
want
is
to.
very
So we
counterintuitive. That's
use our
what is
tools,
happening
and,
here.
you know,
What
it starts with a
I'm going
25
to say
basis
here.
point.
Notice where
rate cut,
value is
but,
here
you
now.
know, the market's also pricing.
What it
in
was
a
and what
rate
it is
path.
now.
I'm not blessing what
It
the
was
market's doing at all. I'm
overlapping
just saying
lower
it's not
relative to
just
this
one action.
day and relative to the 2 days previous range
As a follow-up
and
to
where
that,
it is
the
now.
growth mix right now seems very concentrated.
It's
in
engulfing
investment,
yesterday.
And
Huh?
on the consumer spending side in the higher income groups.
That's
Do
it.
you
That's
feel
the
that's
thing
a
I was
sustainable,
checking.
mix,
I was paying
for
attention.
the economy moving forward?
This is clearly
I wouldn't say
interesting
that.
here.
I
What's
mean,
going
you're
on?
right.
Even though
Those
prices
are
are going lower,
We're getting unusual.
value is moving
large
higher.
amounts of
It's
economic
overlapping
activity
now.
through
It's
the AI
overlapping. I want to see
build-out
where it
and
closes
corporate
now.
investment.
The next thing, where it closes. If it closes below
that
this
will go on,
2 day
no one
range,
does.
or it closes
In
above
terms of
this high
spending,
here.
you saw the spending
That
by
will be the
consumer
next
spending
piece of
numbers were-
information
were
here.
well above expectations, and that may
This
well be skewed.
and this is the
higher-
squeeze
higher
that I was expecting
anecdotal
here,
evidence to
right?
suggest that.
This
Nonetheless, it's
downside movement,
So,
it's
I mean,
a
I think the economy
gigantic
is-
downside
is,
movement, man,
um,
like 30 points here.
you know,
All of these
it's
lows
moving
are being
along.
are
Economic
out now.
growth is gonna
All of
be
these
1.5
loans
and
here
1.5%
are
over
completely
the
out.
year,
This is
maybe a little better.
oh come on.
Forecasts have been
Uh-oh.
coming up, as you can see.
This is
So, labor market
this is not a
unemployment
reference anymore. This
is
one I don't know
low,
what the heck is. I don't remember that.
but, you know,
This is
down-
not a reference.
downside
And
risks,
now
but it's still low
what
unemployment
have
rate.
seen
So,
here.
that's
I
how we see it.
remember. This is coming back to play now. Ellipse
Hi,
here.
Stephanie Rule, MSNBC.
You know,
Treasury
remember
Secretary
that
Scott
I
Bessent
had
has
this in
said
the
that
upper
the Federal
side,
Reserve
and I
suffers
consider
from mission
these
creep,
shorts
institutional
not being squeezed out.
calling for
Yeah, they'll have a relative, they'll have
support
better
independent
staying power,
review,
you know,
or
because
are you
that's
open
the
to
other
any
side
reform in
of the
any way?
retail. You know, that's bigger
Of course, I'm not gonna
participants
comment on
here
anything
holding
the
the
Secretary
shorts.
says
Hat.
or really any
But
other,
you know,
officer
if you
says.
have a movement, that's
So in terms of
almost
reform at the
80,
Fed,
90%,
you know, we just
90
went
points
through
low, but that's a
a
huge,
lengthy and I think very
huge gains that you
successful
have there.
process of updating our
What are they going to do now?
monetary policy framework.
Okay. Because this is
I
just
would say there's a lot of work
short-term
going
trading.
on behind
What's
the
going on
scenes
here?
around
Based on what?
the assets
Remember
we have in
also,
the Federal Reserve Bank system, Federal
we
Reserve
pointed
system and at the
at
board.
this volume here.
Are they the right size?
There's
We're
no
actually
liquidity
going through
here.
a 10%
The really low volume the ES has. I haven't seen any tanks here, any
Through the
10,000.
whole Fed, including
You know,
the board
there
bank,
was
all the
some
reserve banks.
10,000 here, which is this
The
one, remember?
employment at the Fed.
They
at the
say
end of that
65
will
or
be
57,
basically at the same level
57.
it was more than 10 years
This
ago.
area
So we
here,
will have had
right
zero
above the market is now,
job
right?
growth for
This
more than a
area,
decade.
look at
We'll
that,
finish with
POC is
that, and
now
I
that,
think
right?
we'll probably do more.
Everybody can
So
see that
I
now,
think
right?
we're
What
certainly
we saw
open
here
to constructive
before, this
criticism and
12,000 area,
ways to do our job.
now is POC.
Not an independent
This is a
review.
significant reference
We're
for
certainly
traders
open
now.
to-
Traders can
to-
see that now better.
Always trying to do
Right?
better.
Just now, as the market went higher, this POC, I guess moved lower, and now it's volume POC, volume POC, TPO POC as well. That's something that everybody can see now.
Higher productivity by
Okay?
contrast. Do you
Value
buy that? And if that is
has
true,
moved
does that have
lower.
implications for the monetary policy?
That's the
So
counterintuitive
there's
part of the
great
business, right?
uncertainty around
As
that.
market
I think
rises, value goes lower now.
My view, which is also
Can you
a
see?
bit of a guess, but widely shared, I think, is that you are seeing some effects, but it's not the main.
The movement
not the main
happened
driver.
in
And you said
Nasdaq as well.
particular focus on
We
young
talk
people
about
coming out
this, you know, the
college,
potential to the upside that
and,
the years
there may
has
be
has
something
not
there, maybe
materialized,
that companies,
probably
other
because
institutions that have been hiring
Nasdaq has
younger people
tremendous
right out of
potential to the
college
downside. It
or
was
able to
really
use
weak.
AI
No,
that
we can
that
see
past
here,
that
for
may be
example,
part of the
value
story.
in Nasdaq is
It's
below the
also
2-day
part of the
range.
story, though, that,
Yeah.
job creation more
It's building
broadly
value
has
is now
slowed. The
we
economy
have a
has slowed
4-day
down.
range here.
And
And
so
this,
it's probably a number of things. but
I,
yes,
I guess
it's
this
probably
one has
a
dragged
factor,
this
hard to say
market
how
as
big it
well.
is.
No, on top of whatever Chairman Powell has to say. He's not going to cave.
Thanks, Mr.
He's not.
Chairman.
he's
What,
not going
what
to cave
evidence
to
do you
President
see
Trump.
of tariffs showing up in inflation?
Well, if you can take goods, just sort of the broad goods category, and last year, goods inflation was negative. If you go back 25 years, that was the typical thing, was that goods inflation was, goods prices generally went down, even adjusting for quality. So that was not the case during the pandemic, of course. Goods inflation went very high, but we had essentially returned to zero or slightly negative inflation. Now, I think goods inflation over the course of the past year is 1.2%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a big change. So we think, I mean, analysts have different views, but we think it's contributing, 0.3 or 0.4, something like that, to the current core PCE inflation reading, which is 2.9%. So it's contributing.
Now the thing is here. Now this is moving on here, right? I say I have this mindset that something may come out of this trade, out of this press conference. The odds now, I consider that odds that something like that happening now have decreased considerably, because the movement has happened. The movement has happened during the press conference, and I see the market kind of like really at the center of the range. Something really significant has to happen now for that to happen. There's tremendous rebalancing that have happened, and after all these movements, I wouldn't be surprised if the market closes kind of like inside this 3-day value area range, right? In this area. Again, the odds of something significant coming out of this after Chairman Powell concludes his press conference. For me, at least,
on one of your answers just a couple minutes ago, we've often heard you talk about how you and your colleagues, do not think about politics. This does not enter the room. But one of your new colleagues does come from this world, right, where everything is seen through this framework of politics.
Remember, shorts have not been squeezed here yet. There's tremendous amount of shorts, laggards, that may have come down here. The ones that don't have an appreciation of what was going on here in this market, right? Those are the ones that can be squeezed. And to squeeze these shorts, the market needs to come to this area again, right? Just to this area. Now, the more serious thing may come after or above this one, this only previously stopped. Remember that we have here. No, but remember, between that, we have this area which now seems to be an area that the market is paying considerable attention to.
The only way for any voter to really move things around is to be incredibly persuasive, and the only way to do that in the context in which we work is to make really strong arguments based on the data and one's understanding of the economy. That's really all that matters, and that's how it's going to work. And I think that is the way the institution, that's in the DNA of the institution. That's not going to change.
And then I wanted to ask about a Gallup poll that showed that Americans now have more confidence in the president than the Federal Reserve when it comes to doing what's right for the economy. Why do you think that is, and what's your response? What's your message to the public?
Our response is we're going to do everything we can to use our tools to achieve the goals that Congress has given us, and we're not going to get distracted by anything. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're just going to keep doing our jobs.
Again, Chairman Powell is standing his ground here.
Given the range of views expressed prior to the meeting, I think there was a lot less dissent today than a lot of people expected. It'd be good to know just what you think the drivers were of coming to that very strong consensus in the meeting, and also on the flip side to just explain why the plots are really so scattered between, someone even expecting rates to end up higher by the end of the year to 5 cuts. I mean, what were the kind of range of views you heard about, on one side, why there was so much support for a cut today, and on the flip side, why there's so much divergence about what comes next?
So I think there's quite a wide assessment that the situation has changed with respect to the labor market. Whereas we could still say, and did say in July, at the time of the July meeting, that the labor market was in solid condition, and we could point to 150,000 jobs per month and many other things. I think that the new data that we've had, and it's not just payrolls, it's other things as well, suggests that there really is meaningful downside risk. I said there was downside risk then, but I think that downside risk is now a reality, and there's clearly more downside risk. So I think that's broadly accepted. And so that meant different things for different people. Some wrote down, almost everyone wrote down, supported this cut, and some supported more cuts and some didn't, as you will see from the dot plot. So that's just the way it is. I mean, people have, you have people who take this work very seriously, think about it all the time, do their work, discuss it with our colleagues. We endlessly discuss this between ourselves, and then we have a meeting where we put it all out on the table, and this is what you get. And you're right, there's a range of views in the dots, and I think that's, like I said, very unsurprising given the quite unusual, historically unusual nature of the challenges that we face. But let's remember, though, the unemployment rate's 4.3%. The economy's growing at 1.5%. So it's not a bad economy or anything like that. We've seen much more challenging economic times. But from a policy standpoint, the standpoint of what we're trying to accomplish, it's challenging to know what to do. There are, as I mentioned earlier, there are no risk-free paths now. It's not incredibly obvious what to do. So we have to keep our eye on inflation. At the same time, we cannot ignore and must keep our eye on maximum employment, which is those are our two equal goals. And you will see that there are a range of views on what to do. Nonetheless, we came together today at the meeting and acted with a high degree of unity.
Thank you. Archie Hall from The Economist. You mentioned earlier that job creation was running below your guess at its break-even rate. I'd be curious to hear a bit more about that and where you think the break-even rate is.
So there are many different ways to calculate it, and none of them is perfect. But it's clearly come way down. You could say it's somewhere between 0 and 50,000, and you'd be right or wrong. I mean, there's just many different ways to do it. So wherever it was, 150,000, 200,000 a few months ago, it's come down quite significantly. And that's because a very lower amount of people are joining the labor force. The labor force really not growing much at this point. And that's a lot of where the supply of labor was coming from over the last 2 or 3 years. So we're not getting that now. We've got much lower demand. It's interesting that supply and demand have really come down together so far, except now we do have unemployment ticking up just one tick outside of the range where it's been for a year. 4.3% is still a low level, but I think this speedy decline in both supply and demand has certainly gotten everyone's attention.
I'll follow up if I may. You mentioned the downside risk to employment a fair amount, but it's striking that measures of kind of activity and output for the third quarter, those that we have, seem pretty strong. The Atlanta Fed's GDP now is very strong. You mentioned strong PC numbers as well. How do you square those things? Is there a chance actually could be upside risk to the labor market if those activity measures are right?
Well, that would be great. We'd love that to happen. So I don't know that you see a big tension there, but it's gratifying to see that economic activity is holding in, and it's a good bit from consumption. It looks like consumption was stronger than expected, what we got earlier this week, I guess. And also we're getting, a fairly narrow sector is producing a lot of economic activity, which is the AI build out and business investment. So we watch all of it, and I would say we did move up. The median for growth for this year actually moved up in the SEP between the June and September SEPs. So, and really the inflation and labor market didn't change much. It's really the risks that we're seeing to the labor market that were the focus of today's decision.
Nicole. Hi, Nicole Goodkind with Barron's. Thank you for taking my question. Given the cumulative impact of high interest rates on the housing sector, I'm wondering how concerned you are that current rate levels are exacerbating housing affordability issues and potentially hindering household formation and wealth accumulation for a segment of the population?
Housing is an interest-sensitive activity, so it's at the very center of monetary policy. When the pandemic hit and we cut rates to zero, the housing companies were incredibly grateful, and it was really, they said that was the only thing that kept them going, was that we cut so aggressively and provided credit and things like that, and they were able to finance because we did that. The other side of that is when inflation gets high and we raise rates, and you're right, it does burden the housing industry, and so rates have come down a bit, and as that happens, we don't set mortgage rates, but our policy rate changes do tend to affect mortgage rates, and that has been happening, and that'll of course raise demand. Lower borrowing rates for builders will help, builders will help supply. And so some of that should happen. I think most analysts think that it would have to be pretty big changes for it to matter a lot, big changes in rates to matter a lot for the housing sector. And the other thing is by achieving maximum employment and price stability, that's a strong economy. That's a good economy for housing. And then the last thing I'll say is, there's a deeper problem here. There's not a cyclical problem that the Fed can address, and that just is a pretty much nationwide housing shortage. Or a lot of places in the country just don't have enough housing for people, and all of the areas around metropolitan areas like Washington, for example, are very built up, and so you're having to build farther and farther out, and so that's where it is.
And just a quick follow-up. During the last SEP, or the press conference following the last SEP, you seemed to indicate that policymakers lacked conviction about their projections, and I'm wondering if you still feel that way.
Forecasting is very difficult even in placid times, and as I've mentioned before, forecasters are a humble lot with much to be humble about. So I think right now is a particularly challenging time, even more uncertain than usual. And so I don't know any forecaster anywhere, really. Ask any of the forecasters whether they have great confidence in their forecast right now. I think they'll honestly say no.
Thank you, Chair Powell. Jennifer Schonberger with Yahoo Finance. If you're cutting rates, why continue to reduce the size of your balance sheet, then pause the unwinding?
Well, I think we're cutting the size of our balance sheet quite marginally now. As you know, with the balance sheet, we're still in an abundant reserves condition, and we've said that we would stop somewhat above an ample reserves level. That's what we are, and we're getting closer to that. We're monitoring it very carefully. We don't think that has at all significant macroeconomic effects. These are pretty small numbers moving around inside a giant economy. The level of runoff is not very large, so I wouldn't attribute macroeconomic consequences to that at this point.
And at his recent confirmation hearing, Stephen Myron brought up that the Fed actually has 3 mandates from Congress, not just jobs and stable prices, but also moderate long-term interest rates. So what does Congress mean by moderate long-term interest rates? How should we understand that when we see the 10-year Treasury moving? And how do you think about this part of the mandate when policy choices like rate cuts or balance sheet reductions affect the long end of the yield curve?
So we always think of it as the dual mandate, maximum employment and price stability, for a long time, because we think moderate long-term interest rates are something that will result from stable inflation, low and stable inflation, and maximum employment. So we haven't thought about that for a very long time as a third mandate that requires independent action. So that's where that is. And there's no thought of, as far as I'm concerned, there's no thought of considering that, considering that we somehow incorporate that in as something in a different way.
Thanks, Chair Powell. Matt Egan from CNN. We recently learned that average FICO credit scores are down this year by 2 points, the most since 2009 during the Great Recession, and delinquencies are high for car loans, personal loans, credit cards. How concerned, if at all, are you about the health of consumer finances, and do you expect today's cut will help?
So, we're aware of that. I think default rates have been kind of ticking up, and we do watch that. They're not at a level, I don't believe they're at a level where overall they're terribly concerning, but it is something that we watch. Lower rates should support economic activity. I don't know that one rate cut will have, a visible effect on that, but over time, a strong economy with a strong labor market is what we're aiming for, and stable prices. So that should help.
Just to follow up, this rate cut is coming at a time when the stock market is at or near all-time highs, and some valuation metrics are elevated historically. Is there a risk that cutting rates could overheat financial markets, potentially fueling a bubble?
We're tightly focused on our goals, right? And our goals are maximum employment and price stability. And so we take the actions that we take with an eye on those goals. Separately, and that's why we did what we did today. Separately, we monitor financial stability very, very carefully. And, I would say it's a mixed picture, but households are in good shape, banks are in good shape. Overall, households are still in good shape in the aggregate. And I know that people at the lower end of the income spectrum are under pressure, obviously. But from a financial stability perspective, we monitor that picture. We don't have a view that there's a right or wrong level of asset prices for any particular financial asset, but we monitor the whole picture, really looking for structural vulnerabilities, and I would say those are not elevated right now.
Jean, we'll go to you for the last question.
Hi, Chair Powell. Jean Young with M&I Market News. I wanted to ask about inflation expectations. You've said the Fed can't take the stability of inflation expectations for granted. You mentioned at the short run they've gone up a little bit. I wonder if you can talk a bit about that. And then also at the long run, I'm wondering, do you see evidence that the debate over Fed independence and the growing deficit is putting pressure on inflation expectations?
So as you said, shorter-term inflation expectations have tended to respond to near-term inflation. So if inflation goes up, inflation expectations will predict that it takes just a little while to get back down. Fortunately, throughout this period, longer-term inflation expectations, both break even in the markets, and almost all of the longer-term surveys, Michigan being a bit of an outlier lately, have been just rock solid in terms of running at levels that are consistent with 2% inflation over time. So we don't take that for granted. We actually assume that our actions have a real effect on that, and that we need to continually show and also discuss our commitment to 2% inflation. And so you'll hear us doing that. But as I mentioned, it's a difficult situation because we have risks that are both affecting the labor market and inflation. Those are our two goals, and so we have to balance those two. When they're both at risk, we have to balance them, and that's really what we're trying to do. Your latter part of your question was about independents, I don't see market participants. I don't see that that's something they're factoring in right now in terms of setting interest rates. Thanks very much.
So that was it for the press conference. Something interesting happened here. I have highlighted this volume here, this area, because of the volume that came here, right? It seems now that this can be some sort of support for anything here. If anything happens to the upside, this can be support and or resistance. If there is a downside from here. The curious thing is we have the upside, in the upper side, we have this area that has becoming more and more relevant as the day, as the session inches to the close, right? These shorts here now, the shorts have not been excused. I remember there's still an overlay, significant volume here that came from this overnight. That is still here. Well, I mean, might be still here. I wouldn't say that they are still here. But, this is a good area to take profits after what we have seen here, even here, right? This is super elongated to the downside. Downhill, coming to the downhill. And many people just come think, the market's going to come down here, and just wait. I have to wait. Now they might be seeing the profits erode, and as the session heads into the closing, just one more period, a potential squeeze here also. It is not, for me, it is still within the odds, right? It is a squeeze this time to the upper side. If that happens, for me, at least, it's just good odds. It's just a squeeze. Nothing kind of serious out of that.
Forward. I think what really surprised the markets a little bit, and what led to some of the reversal on what was lower interest rates and what the stock market, was that when he said there was no support or very little support for a 50 basis point cut. Because I know the chatter going into this meeting was a lot about maybe they'll go 50, but it sounds like that wasn't even a consideration. And he also said, which he says pretty much every press conference, there's no predetermined path for interest rates. I thought Steve Leisman asked an interesting question about the word recalibration disappeared. Frankly, he didn't say recalibration, but I think there was recalibration. And, I always talk about the spread between the Fed funds rate and the 2-year Treasury, and it was getting pretty out of whack. It wasn't like it was a year ago when it was the most out of whack in my career, but it was out of whack, and so the 25 is there. Very divided opinions about what should happen for the rest of the year.
To say the least. I mean, I'm wondering what you make of that. I mean, there is huge disagreement. So one member wanted 5 more 25 basis point cuts. We can only assume that that's Mr. Myron. Sure. 6 project no more, and 9 see 2 more. So there's a massive disagreement.
All over the place.
What do you make of that?
Well, I think it ties in with Jay Powell's comments about the labor market. He seemed genuinely surprised or confused, maybe is a better word, about the 1.7 million job revision downward. And the most recent one, 900, I think it was 918,000, which are really big revisions. And he seems a little bit confused also about how the labor market has shrinking supply and demand. And I'm a little bit concerned that the consequences of this path downward from about 120, 150 job creations a month down to maybe 0 to 50, I think he gave the range. I think there's a risk there of over-easing. I hope that they start focusing, and I think they will if I read carefully into what Jay Powell said. They need to look at the unemployment rate more than the jobs creation. It always used to be the jobs creation. But now with this negative immigration and with the downward shift in demand for jobs, supply for jobs, I think we really need to focus on the unemployment rate, which he rightly says is not terribly elevated at 4.3. You know, there's that old SOM rule about the unemployment rate versus its moving average, and it's not triggering. It's not over 0.5 above its 12-month moving average.
As Ms. Som said this morning on CNBC,
no, did she?
Not quite triggered. So she's matching exactly what you believe too.
There are two important indicators that are not high frequency. They have long lead times. And one of them is the unemployment rate versus its 36-month moving average. And it's above its 36-month moving average. And that's usually leads by a lot, but it's been above its 36-month moving average for a long time. And yet, no recession yet. Also, the yield curve, 2s to 10s, when it crosses above its 12-month moving average, you're really on watch for a recession. But when the 12-month moving average itself goes above 0, which it has on the 2s, 10s, that's has a good record of predicting that you're getting near the front edge of recession. And, you know, Jay Powell seems, it's interesting that the SEP, they increased marginally the expectations for growth, yet he sounds much more cautious about things with the confusion about the unemployment rate and the birth-death model he brought up, which a lot of economists that have been wary about the economy have been talking about flaws in the birth-death model, and he kind of acknowledged that today. And that's the primary reason in his mind for the the downgrade in the past reports of the jobs created.
If you are worried to some degree about the Fed over-easing, do you agree with the 25-point move today? Do you think that was the right move, and do you think 50 would have been a mistake?
Yeah, I think 25 is the right move. Again, it's getting more in sync with the 2-year Treasury. But I do think that it's interesting that the yield curve, it started out by steepening, and now it's flattening. And I think that's in response to the rhetoric about 50 was not even being considered. The long bond, as I've been talking about really for the past over a year in these conversations, the long bond doesn't really want the Fed to be easing a lot. The long bond likes the fact that likes it when the Fed has inflation more under control, and the long bond obviously doesn't like the budget deficit increasing. We're almost all the way through fiscal 2024, which ends at the end of next month, and the budget deficit as a percent of GDP is higher than last year, which was higher than the year before, which was higher than the year before that, which is all very surprising because we had so much stimulus back then. So what's really out of control is spending. Government spending is out of control, and I think the 3B bill that's coming into effect, I think that has too much spending in it, and I don't like the tax cuts either.
Hang on just one second. Steve Leisman's made his way out of the room, and we'll come back with Jeffrey, of course, in just a minute. So, Steve, as you read the statement and you heard the Fed chair, and then, of course, you asked your question, is the biggest story today the massive disagreement, as we've termed it, over the outlook for the remainder of 25? Is that the biggest takeaway among others?
Well, Scott, let me correct you. The correct economic term for disagreement on the Federal Reserve is dispersion of views, just so you know.
Thank you.
And that's a joke, of course. I'm guessing Jeff understood that one. Anyway, where we are is you had 7 folks who didn't want just either one more cut or no more cuts, and you have 9 who want 2 more cuts. And the way Powell explained it was like, hey, with all the stuff that's going on right now, you would think we would have a dispersion of views or a debate. In fact, that's exactly what I asked him about. But before we get to that quote, which I want to run here, I said, is this a recalibration or is this meeting by meeting? And he said, it's meeting by meeting. We're going to have to see the data. And then he talked about this exact question that you asked about, Scott.
Ordinarily, when the labor market is weak, inflation is low. And when the labor market is really strong, that's when you got to be careful about inflation. So we have a situation where we have two-sided risk. And that means there's no risk-free path. And so it's quite a difficult situation for policymakers. And it's not at all surprising to me that you have a range of views.
Now, I think we went into this, Scott, with really one question, which is, we knew a cut was going to happen. How much confidence can we have in the future cuts? I'm looking at the futures market, Scott, and I'm seeing that they're pretty much dialed in those other two rate cuts out there. I don't know if it's more or less than they should, but certainly Powell did not use that word recalibration, which is what he used in September 2024, forecast additional cuts. We're looking now at January 2026. So that's pretty dialed in, that 360, which is, right, by the way, right on where the median Fed funds or Fed official is right now. So I do think there's some doubt that should be in investors' minds, Scott, only because if inflation goes a little hotter and jobs are a little stronger, maybe you get just one more cut.
I also have felt, Steve, over the last few meetings at least, that the chair himself has had an air of confidence about him and where the Fed currently is and how it views the outlook and where they feel like they are. I feel like today you just have reintroduced a level of uncertainty around things that we really haven't felt in a while, to the degree that the Fed chair himself said it's not entirely clear what to do at the end of the sentence where he started, there's no risk-free paths now that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of disagree a little bit, Scott. I think Powell is pretty comfortable with the uncertainty around it. It's like, hey, I was dealt, a 2, a 3, a 4, and an 8, or something like that. There's no actual obvious hand here to think about, in the sense that you have, and I've said this a bunch of times, unprecedented challenges on both sides of the mandate. Let me give you an example, Scott, and this is something that we're going to need to talk about in the future. If the break-even rate of employment is, let's say it's 50,000 now, and your 95% confidence level around that number is plus or minus 100,000, that means you could be minus 50K and have an okay job market if those numbers are the right numbers. So I think he's like, hey, this is what I got. I got unprecedented challenges on both sides. I have a committee, they're expressing themselves, and he's going through the process. I don't think he's any more uncertain with the situation than he's been. He's just in a very uncertain situation. Seems pretty comfortable for me in that situation.
All right, good stuff, Steve. I appreciate you. Thank you. That's Steve Leisman, just out of the room, of course, asking a question himself to the Fed chair. We're back here in Los Angeles with Jeffrey Gundlach. Do you agree with that assessment from Steve?
Largely, I do, yeah. I mean, I think there is a remarkable divergence of views at the Fed.
All right, I think we got that. There's a lot of people that is on the side that the Fed should do more cuts, and there's a lot of people also that is on the opposite side of that's okay. In the meantime, I guess the last part during the stream was that the last part that has happened is that the trade actually happened during the press conference. It does not come after. The market seems very comfortable now finding area where two-way trade can take place. We have POC here. This area from where all this selling that was established actually Monday, it is weakening. Now it is weakening. It's multiple times has been sold. There is still an all-time high that was made in the overnight, but this low here, it has significant excess here now. All of this, this is the thing, right? All of the data, all of the information that we had coming into this day has been taken out, has been rebalanced on both sides. 917 low. This is a good low here. I mean, it has significant excess. I say it's not. This has excess down here, and this is, remember, this can be a new 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 day range that is forming. This is the first day. This is Friday. This is the first day when December actually had significant volume. It has way past this low when we have this very questionable weekly low loans here. Those have been squeezed out. Now, I don't know if this is going to happen today. Maybe the end of the week. We may have something coming out of this. The weakness that was we were having here to the upside, it is showing it now to the downside. But what I just showed and talk about this while the commentators were here talking, is this high here. I'm interested in seeing how this week closes, right? If it closes to right where it opened, that also is a piece of information here that can have an impact in the market, because there's a lot of short-term trading going on, and traders value this kind of information. It never came down to this. I don't know why I had this here. Right? I guess. Because it was the 6600, right? 6600. That's why I decided to put it here. It was this breakout here, or what else? Yeah, there's a breakout of this range. Come here and just starts forming here. Very questionable here. Right? But there's a lot of excess here. Now, we are just 20 more minutes before the closing. And the next thing, for a significant change that this market may have, right? The next thing is, if there's any change relative to all the things that have happened today, is market having the potential to close above this range, right? Which, if that happens, the odds as closer we get to the close, the odds decreases of that happening. The message that can deliver is a strong market, a strength in this market, right? Because has checked way below yesterday's range, way below the 2-day range, way past removing, shaking all these weak large loans here, and closing above the range. That's one thing, right? And as we speak, we were talking about this level here. I just put that out of, to have something. I didn't have no idea what the market was going to do, but I have seen how the market is actually having something out of this, right? This 57 level that we have here, right? And we have this one down here, this one. There's some buying that's coming from that. We have significant amount of stops on the upper side, and a very clear resistance now here around the 66.75, which would be this high, the high of this, or maybe even more value, this value, today's value area high is. I have nothing else to say. It was a really nice day to learn, to observe, to get information from this market. Part of the dynamics, learning how trading works, what is behind. I have just did the first part. I am tired, really tired to this. I was absorbing information. I am sticking to my plan. I am executing the plan, which is not doing anything. Right? It seems easy. It is not, because you still have the emotions there. Oh boy. I having something out of this, and having the the urge to go short, to be long is still there, right? But that's not in the contract, right? You know, I didn't sign for that. I got my plan. I'm sticking to that, and whatever come out of that, let's be it, right? Let's deal with that, and that's what I'm doing here. All right. Unless you have any questions, I'm going to.
Hi guys, welcome back. We are.
And wish you a wonderful rest of the day. I am interested now. That as I say, my next thing is. I am really interested in seeing where this market closes in the weekly time frame. Right? Okay. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. See you.